If you've ever looked closely at the content on the Lost Media Wiki, you'll notice that every topic is sorted into a specific category that has been defined by the community, and there are a lot of these. Some topics have a little bit of overlap, but aside from the occasional thread in the forums about physical lost media, I never see discussion that doesn't fit into one of these. But for me, I find myself using the term lost media more loosely, with the more time I spend researching topics. When my friends used to get together for pizza and video games, once we finished off one of the pizzas, or if we'd be missing a controller, it wouldn't be uncommon for one of us to state, "Well, I guess it's lost media now." I like using the term as an identifier for when anything goes missing, and it was in that line of thinking that made me create a new concept I like to call theoretical lost media. This is a category that covers topics which might exist but cannot be proven to, or content that never existed at all, but could have. While it might sound similar to the existence unconfirmed category, or simply refer to something that was cancelled and never came out, the examples I have tell a different story. It's just a little food for thought, so don't go to the wiki and start writing articles about these topics, but I'm sure it'll get you thinking about lost media in a completely different way. The first topic I have for this theoretical lost media category is content that could exist in theory, but we have no proof that it actually does. The best way I can describe this, and what I think is a very accurate example, relates to a main category that I see brought up and discussed all the time: commercials and bumpers. It goes without saying that there are many dedicated groups of fans who try to save as much of this kind of content as possible, which can sometimes be a difficult task, as pieces of lost media in this category were made to be disposable. It often means trying to search through VHS tapes or contacting a company involved, hoping they still have the content, and in most cases, these searches end when one of two goals are reached. The first is when a very specific commercial is being searched for that, once found, will end the search completely. This is similar to the Subway Perfection ad, as it was a distinct memory from a certain point in time that was found in its entirety and the search was over. The second goal is a little more broad, and it's simply to amass as much content from a particular channel or point in time to build up a collection, which is often done for channels like Cartoon Network and their different eras. But unlike searching for a specific commercial that ends once you find it, when does a search for something like the CN City bumpers end? How do you know when you found them all? There is currently no list or specific documentation on which ones exist and which ones don't. I get asked this a lot by my viewers during live streams, whether or not I think we'll ever archive all of the CN City bumpers for a complete collection. But without a list to reference, I can only theorize that there's probably more out there no one remembers or has come across before. Another search this applies to is the Nick Jr. face bumpers, which is even more of a mess than the CN City is. There exists one list that I could find which attempts to archive all of the known bumpers, but it's constantly being updated, and there are even international versions for some of them which most people have never even come across. The question remains, do all of them have international versions? And if not, which ones for sure were adapted outside of the US? We don't know, which leaves any undocumented bumpers to only exist in theory, simply because some have already been found, but there's no proof that any other face bumpers exist in general. This could be a complete list, but there's no way to confirm it, so anything else that might be lost is only lost in theory. The next topic I'd like to discuss is one that's very nostalgic to me, and touches upon a different area of theoretical lost media. This is content that could have existed, but never actually did. The first comparison most people would probably make here is that it sounds similar to cancelled media, like movies or TV shows that were supposed to come out but never did. While I can see the similarity in this comparison, to me, the projects that fit into cancelled media were supposed to come out but didn't for any number of reasons. The theoretical side of this content, however, is content that never existed in the first place, but could have if circumstances had been different. Here's the example, which I'm very happy to talk about. It takes us to the channel of my favorite YouTuber, Psycho. I was a huge fan of Psycho back in the mid-2010s, and he was a huge influence on my decision to become a YouTuber. I still watch his content to this day, and will often go back to that nostalgic point in time to re-watch the old stuff, mostly on the Psycho Plays channel. So many of my favorite series came from this era, including Sonic 06 and Goat Simulator. But of all my favorite Let's Plays Psycho ever made, there was one that felt out of place from the others. This game is called Ostrich Island. It's a basic platformer that has you jumping around an island setting, collecting eggs. The game itself isn't anything too special, but there's something about Psycho's sarcasm and confusion that makes me love this episode so much, and how I wish there was more to the series. The first time I watched this, I figured it was a series he would get back to eventually, but when I rewatched it years later, I now consider it theoretical lost media. There are several points in the video where Psycho isn't sure whether or not he should continue the series, or even make a second episode. The game is pretty janky, and it unfortunately doesn't get better as it progresses. By the end of the episode, Psycho states that viewers can leave a comment if they think the series is worth continuing. For years, I had believed the viewers were actually the reason why the series was cancelled, and would have said it was a preventable cancellation. But after checking the comments again, they were pretty positive. It seems as though Psycho made the decision to quit, which makes it even funnier in this context. A series that could have had a continuation, or could have at least had a second episode, but was cut short because the game wasn't fun. These additional episodes were never filmed and never existed, so they can't really be considered lost media, but in theory, they are lost, because you can't watch a series that never existed. It seems like if the game was developed a little better, or even if the water control feature was fixed, the Let's Play would have continued. But all these years later, I'm still disappointed at that. Though, maybe the fact that it exists as a single episode is what makes it so memorable. There's also some traditional lost media mentioned in this video, however. Apparently, if the game had sold well enough on PC, it was being considered for a Wii U port. As far as I can tell, the Wii U version was never released, but maybe if that had come out, it would have given us another chance at a Psycho Ostrich Island Let's Play. Finally, the last example of theoretical lost media is a concept farther away from the other two discussed so far in this video. It's a thought that came to me while watching anime, and I guess this concept is most relevant in anime anyway. Earlier in the summer, I had started rewatching Bleach on one of those free channels you get with your TV. But to my surprise, it wasn't the dubbed version, and rather the subtitled one. At first, I was greatly disappointed by this, because I grew up watching the dub, and not being able to hear the old school voice actors was something I missed. But after watching a few of the episodes, I noticed there was some new content in each one that I hadn't seen before in the English dub. This included small additions like transition cards in between the commercial breaks and a little outro card that ended the episode. Most importantly, however, were the extra animations that came on after the ending finished, called omake in Japanese. These are segments that discuss different aspects of the series in humorous ways, whether it's about battle tactics and enemy powers, or what the captains do in the Soul Society when they're hanging around. These were not broadcast on Adult Swim when the series was first airing, so my first thought was that they never dubbed them at all. This would be a good example of theoretical lost media because if they hadn't chosen to dub them back then, it's something that could never exist now, for the fact that the original series is over and the original dub is finished. Dubbing the omake is something that had to happen at the time. However, upon looking into this topic further, I did realize that they were indeed dubbed and included on the DVD releases from back in the day. So this topic specifically isn't lost at all. But I took the same concept and applied it to other anime that I watched growing up. A great example of this that I'm definitely in the minority to bring up is the 4Kids dub of One Piece, the first localization of the series that aired in 2004 on the Foxbox and 4Kids programming blocks. This version of the show is pretty infamous for its censorship and scripting, but it's the voice cast that's really nostalgic for me, and what I think of when someone mentions One Piece. The series is way longer now than it was back then, but even during the 4Kids run, they still had close to 150 episodes to cover, and they never got through them all. They actually reduced the number of episodes and only dubbed those ones. So not only did we never get a 4Kids dub for the full extent of episodes that were available at the time, but now that the company doesn't even exist anymore, a continuation of the series wouldn't be possible. 4Kids dubs of anything past where they ended the series will never exist. To me, that's theoretical lost media, because there were never plans to keep it going, and no unreleased audio from future episodes exist either. This probably applies to most of the 4Kids library, as they often cut or combined episodes from the original Japanese count. You could even apply this concept to series that haven't been localized yet, English dubs that never existed, so in theory, they're lost to time. Gintama would have been a great example of this. I had come across the series while playing Jump Ultimate Stars growing up, and always wanted to watch the series dubbed, but for more than a decade, it didn't exist. Apparently the series was very Japanese-oriented, and back then, there wasn't as much interest in translating it to air on a channel like Adult Swim. I figured the series would stay in Japan until Hulu released English episodes a few years ago. After watching it, I can definitely see how it would have been hard to market here in the US during the late 2000s. I'm glad this series was localized, unlike so many that have yet to be, and those localizations, if there's no plans to localize them, would be theoretical lost media. Those are some topics that cover this concept. Again, it's food for thought that makes you think about lost media in a different way. The content that we'll never get, because it can't be proven to exist, was never meant to exist or can't exist. If you have any of your own examples that would fit into this category, comment them down below. I'm interested in seeing what you guys can come up with. But with these kinds of theoretical lost media, it appears as though they'll always remain a mystery. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other lost media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.